Welcome back to World's Strongest Opinions, episode 68. I've been interacting with a lot of you in our stories on our Instagram page, asking a lot of questions, what people want to hear. And I really want to just thank you all. I really appreciate the engagement, the feedback, the conversation. And I've decided that I'm going to answer the question about steroids because I think it's an important conversation to have when it comes to strongman. And I'm going to touch just a little bit on peptides and really not SARMs because that's not my forte. I don't have a very in-depth knowledge on SARMs, and to be honest, I'm not an expert about steroids, and I'm sure I'm going to say something, and somebody's going to go and you know Google it and come back and tell me how I'm an idiot and they're smarter than me. But such is life. I do find that in my conversations with people in person, I do tend to have a bit more knowledge than the average user. So I'm going to kind of focus this on. I'm going to try to kind of hit on the things that I think are important that I've had conversations with people about that typically I find they're not doing right or just aren't in the know. And it does surprise me actually how many people I talk to that are using steroids and have no freaking idea what the hell they're doing. Blows my mind. So I'm gonna preface all of this here actually that number one, the vast majority of you do not need to be using and should not be using for any reason. Um, unless you're on TRT, and TRT is not like running, 150 milligrams of tren. That's not TRT, right? That's not a cruise. 500 milligrams of test is not a cruise. TRT is usually, 150 milligrams a week or less to get you into normal ranges. Um, the vast majority you shouldn't even be using because the risk to reward is not worth it. Especially if you're still competing at a local competition, like you do not need to be on steroids. If you can't win a local competition without steroids, you are in the wrong sport or you're doing something extremely wrong. Um, right? If you don't have your diet, your sleep, and your training dialed in first, and you haven't been doing it for, I don't know, I'm throwing an arbitrary number out here, 7, 8 years. You're not in your 30s. You should not be even entertaining the idea of using steroids. But certainly, if you're not even winning local competitions naturally, right, you don't need to be on steroids because they're not going to help you get anywhere. Um, because you clearly don't have. Let me rephrase that. They might help you get somewhere, but you're using them as a. I'm tell you right now that you're already using them as a crutch, which is not the purpose. They're a tool, right? And I find that a lot of people, all the way to the very very top, and I've been guilty of this at times too, until I learned and became more knowledgeable that people are using it as a crutch, right? They've done something wrong in their training. They're not feeling confident. They're not where they think they should be. Big competitions coming up, and they start adding in extra compounds to limp themselves into the competition, hoping that it's gonna you know make up for where they failed in their training, diet, and sleep. Probably the worst reason to use steroids. I'm not an expert. I've already said that, right? None of this is any kind of medical advice whatsoever. I'm doing this because I know that people are going to use, and I have these conversations with people all the time in the DMs that the most that I can ever hope for is knowing that people are going to use and trying to help them do it smart and as intelligently as possible. And one of the number one things that I always tell everybody, don't listen to me. Don't don't listen to the fucking gym bros, especially because the gym bros don't give two shits about you. They're gonna go and tell you, to take 100 milligrams of Anavar while knowing that you may even be in liver failure. Right? That's how little they care. And I'm using that as an example because I've literally crossed that in real life. Gym bro, well, actually, was somebody's coach, advising his client who was on a liver transplant list to take 100 milligrams of Anavar. I could have punched the dude in the face, and I did lose it on him. And thankfully, I talked the client out of that. But don't trust the gym bros, right? Don't be getting your shit from the gym bros. Um, and don't trust me, right? Go and do your own research. You need to know more than anybody what you're putting in your body and what the side effects are, and understanding how, what precautions you need to take to, like, uh, cardio, right? You need to be doing freaking cardio no matter what, but especially if you're going to use, you need to be taking proper ancillaries, aromatase inhibitors to control your estrogen. You need to be taking liver support, Tudica, NAC. If you're going to run orals, right, you got to be eating properly for your diet, because if you eat like shit, you're just going to get shit out, right? That's the results you're going to get. So very important that you're out there, um, doing your own research, educating yourself well in advance of ever taking the plunge, pun intended, um, and trust no one. Do your own research, understand what you're doing to yourself before you do that. But again, if you have not been training long enough, you're not even winning local competitions. You don't have any great aspirations for strongman. Your natty testosterone is still mid-level normal. And I mean, you shouldn't even be considering this until your natural testosterone is like less than 350. Um, and if it is, right, TRT is probably the right route to go, not just going straight in and getting on a bunch of steroids, but you shouldn't even be considering this. This is what I'm saying. And you need, number one, you need to be doing your blood work. I don't know how many times I've talked to people that are on like a crap ton of gear and have never done their blood work. They have no idea what any of this stuff is doing to them inside. And they're on, 3 or 4 different compounds. Their blood pressure is, 180 over 90. They look like, their face looks like the moon landing, right? Because it's so bloated. No clue what they're doing, right? Don't be that guy. Don't be that woman. If you choose to use steroids too, don't be that person. Um, because I mean, it's stupid, right? Don't be an idiot. If you're going to use, do it as intelligently as possible and do it as safely as possible. Now, because saying that is kind of a oxymoron in some regard when it comes to the steroid cycles that people are using at the top level of strongman, because it's just not safe anymore. Period. But at least try, is what I'm saying. But some of you don't need to be using it, and I will never recommend a lot of people using it. I'm a firm believer that using less is more. And if you can't compete at the top on 500 milligrams of testosterone, you're doing it wrong. And your diet sucks, your sleep sucks, your training sucks. So you're not doing something right. But I know people are going to use. And that's kind of those conversations that I have with a lot of people in DMs. I know people are going to use, and I want to try to help those people as much as I can. Again, number one, do your own research. Get your freaking blood work done. Take proper ancillaries. Monitor your blood pressure, and take proper action to mitigate those risks. Now, some just of the basics of steroid use. Number one is like like a very beginner cycle, and if you're a beginner, the last thing you want to do is just go in and add a bunch of compounds, because when you do that and you start having side effects, you have no idea what is causing those side effects. So you always start with one compound, testosterone, and a long ester. When we're talking about esters, long ester, enanthate, cypionate, decanate, all these have slightly different half lives, right? So it's a slow release essentially. Enanthate has roughly a 2 week half life. Cypionate has roughly a 3 week half life, and so these things take a little longer. right, for you to feel effects. Like it could take up to 6 weeks before you start noticing, 6 to 8 weeks before you start actually feeling something. But likewise, when you stop, it takes a while for it to taper off. Almost always want to start with something really simple like a long ester, right? Enanthate, cypionate, decanate, super long. It's one of the longest. Versus short ester like propionate, which has about a 3 day half life. Start with testosterone first. Understand what it does to your body. Do your blood work. See where your side effects are. Take proper action to mitigate those, and learn how your body responds to that before adding anything else, so that you know how your body's going to respond to that. And then if you add something else and you have an unusual side effect, you can pretty much pinpoint that it's the new compound. Um, Another basic. Every single cycle needs to have a base of testosterone. It doesn't matter what it is. Even mint, right? Trestolone needs to have a base of testosterone. No matter what the gym bros say, no matter what anybody says, base is always testosterone. There's a good reason for that, that I'm not going to get into here. But um, when you start taking things like oral steroids, right? These are not intended for long-term use. They're short-term. They're very hepatotoxic, every single one of them, including Anavar, especially at the doses that people are taking at 100 milligrams, 75 to 100 milligrams, maybe more, right? Just because it's the least hepatotoxic doesn't mean that 100 milligrams is less toxic than, right, 40 milligrams of D-ball, right? It's like saying, "Oh, well, my 3-2, I can go buy 3-2 beer on Sunday in Minnesota. Oh, it has less alcohol in it, so it's safe for me to drink a case of it." No, it's not, right? Just because it has less in it doesn't mean you get to take more and have less side effects. It doesn't work that way. It's a stupid mindset. But when you're taking those, you need to take proper precautions for liver support, right? I already mentioned Tudica and NAC, right? You need to be taking adequate doses of those on a daily basis too. Really, to me, any dose of oral steroids, you should be taking around 1,000 to 1,500 milligrams of Tudica a day and 600 milligrams of NAC a day, minimum. And that's like Tudica is has some pretty good research. It influences or supports bile production, right, to flush out those bile ducts and everything in the liver. Um, I mean, those are some of the bare bones basics from a steroid perspective, and you do not need a lot. Like 500 milligrams is probably going to jack your serum levels, your blood serum levels up to, I mean, anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 nanograms per deciliter, where the normal range is something like, I don't know, 300 to 1,500, right? So I mean, it's going to at least probably double the upper threshold of normal, which is more than enough, right? You don't need your testosterone blown completely out of the water to perform well. But I mean, you're going to feel better, right? And the testosterone, again, this is not a crutch. You have to eat well, you have to sleep well, you have to train well to get results. Garbage in, garbage out, right? Good stuff in, good stuff out, all day, every day. Peptides. Very simply, BP 157, TB 500 are great for injuries. I tore my quad, it was a freak tear, 6 weeks out from OSG 2023. I got on just BP 157 at 500 micrograms a day. And I was right as rain in 6 weeks. Like I was limping, I could barely bend my knee. It was so swollen and bruised. The bruising was insane. Healed me right up really quick. But again, not magic. You have to eat, you have to sleep, you have to rehab. You have to still do the work. There's no magic cheat code, right? There's tools And that's what all these are. They're tools. They're not cheat codes. They're not crutches. They're not magic potions, right? They just do things by themselves. You have to still do the work. You still have to take additional um, actions in order for them to be beneficial. Um, and then there's all the secretagogues that help with growth hormone production, ipamorelin, ceramorelin. I don't know if I'm actually saying those right. MK677, right? Butamotrin, um, which is MK677. There's the GHRP or whatever they are, right? My opinion of all that stuff is a waste of money because the cost to benefit is really high. You're going to probably spend the same amount of money as just buying growth hormone and get less benefit, right? So you may as well just go and buy growth hormone if that's what you want to do. But my opinion is for strongman, it's basically worthless. If you talk to top bodybuilders, these guys are using growth hormone to squeeze out like the last 1% of their potential, right? Because steroids have got them as far as they think that they can get. They're going to start using growth hormone to try to squeeze out that last little bit. It's all a lot of hype without a lot of delivery. There's people. I know a few guys that really like therapeutic dose at like that 2 to 4 I use a day because it helps them sleep better. I think they get a better sense of well-being. Their skin may improve, hair and skin may have some improvements, but myself, the side effects weren't worth it. All I would ever get was just like gnarly numbness in my hands, which is a common side effect, but it was so unbearable. I chose to not run it. And again, the benefits, like the cost of benefit is just insane, right? It's not gonna, produce great results for the cost. And that's really about the only peptides that I mean, melanotan. If you want to get tan, melanotan too, relatively safe. It's a great. I mean, I've used it in the past. I may still use it. I get really bad gastrointestinal discomfort for about 15-30 minutes afterwards. I get a little flush, but man, it'll make you tan and it'll get you dark really fast. But you have to tan, right? It's another example of you still have to do some work in order for it to work, right? It doesn't work. It's not like I think the other melanotan one or whatever is supposed to just pigment your skin, but there's some really bad side effects associated with it. So melanotan 2 is more common, more popular, and relatively safe, I think. Now, when it comes to SARMs, the general consensus of everybody that I've ever talked to that's used them is they're garbage. They have really bad side effects. They've really screwed people up. So my recommendation is, and again, they're kind of still relatively new-ish to the fitness world. There's some good research around some of them, but I think the side effects, a lot of them tend to have bad liver. Toxicity or high liver stress associated with them, probably not the best route to go. And again, things like testosterone are relatively safe. Stick with that if that's what you're going to do. But to recap, a couple of other things on steroids, like you don't need tren. Anytime I get this question from people all the time, like, "Hey, what do you think about me adding some tren to my cycle?" No, don't do it. Tren is freaking poison. It is one of the harshest compounds in existence. Extremely hard on your liver and your kidneys, especially. I don't know how many times I've listened to people like laugh about pissing brown on tren and being like, oh, it's just normal oxidization or something of the compound. No, dude, that's liver. I mean, that's kidney damage. You're freaking pissing blood, man. You're getting like some kind of tren-induced hematuria, and damaging your kidneys. That's not normal. It's not okay, and it's stupid. to even consider that that's okay, in light of potentially winning a plastic freaking trophy and an attaboy that everybody forgets about within a week, right? No matter what competition you win. And that's the kind of the absurdity of the strongman, the steroid use in strongman is like so many people are on these huge freaking cycles. Like I don't know how many times I've heard like people at the very top, man, running, grams of multiple compounds, testosterone, gramatrin, 100 milligrams of anadrol on top of halotestin, which is the most hepatotoxic oral, injecting in between events and competition, and talking to these guys like what precautions do you take? When's the last time you had your blood work done? Like what's your blood pressure? And it's just like it's a mind-blowing response of like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I haven't had my blood work done ever. My blood's probably just the viscosity of oil for all I know, because I haven't even given blood, right? Which you need to be giving blood regularly while you're on, even on testosterone. Right, but that goes back to getting your blood work done and making sure that you're monitoring your RBC, right? Because that's one of the natural side effects of running testosterone is your RBC is going to rise, and you have to go into therapeutic blood releases. Now, some places you can't give blood because they're going to prick your finger. This has happened to me, and they're like, "Oh, your RBC and your hematocrit is elevated. We can't take your blood." And I asked, "Well, what's the recommendation for high RBC and hematocrit?" And they're being like, "Giving blood." And I'm like, "Well, why can't you do it?" Well, they need a doctor's note or a prescription or whatever you call it. So I tend to do that myself. I guess I live on the edge a little bit. I've done it enough times where I have kits. But you need to be doing that regularly, right? Keeping that in check. You need to be watching your kidney function. Because again, the stress on your kidneys, especially when it comes to blood pressure, which is a very common side effect of any compound, is elevating your blood pressure. And I mean, if you're above like 120 over 60, 70, right, you need to be paying attention to that. You need to be doing your blood pressure, checking your blood pressure regularly. But blood pressure is called the silent killer for a reason, right? It slowly destroys your kidneys. And then you go into kidney failure and you're SOL. Um, Liver, again, enzymes. Now this is like a tricky one, I think. Your liver enzymes can increase just naturally from a heavy lifting session, can elevate slightly temporarily before they come back down. Oral steroids are going to cause elevated um, liver enzymes as well. So it's important to watch that, but I think it's a little tricky. I think if you're elevated because of steroid use, I think it's again important that you're taking those supplements to help mitigate that. But if it's like not within, I usually kind of worry if it gets like double the upper threshold. But it's been I've read some summary research. I know every time everybody says that they read the research, and like, did you really read the whole paper? I read the conclusions and the summaries. Um, that that it's relatively safe temporarily for your liver enzymes to get as much as triple of the upper threshold. So I think that's like for ASTs like 50. I don't know what it actually is, somewhere around there. So if it's like 150, you're probably okay under 150, but temporary. You don't want to stay elevated long term, which those oral steroids can cause. And again, your estrogen, right? Testosterone aromatizes into estrogen. You need to have estrogen. You don't want to crash your estrogen. You want to stay, kind of in that 20 to 40 nanograms per deciliter range. When it starts to get really high, one of the normal common side effects, like at this point, I know in my estrogen's high, I don't even need blood work. I do still get my blood work done, but I just know I start to feel sluggish. I feel like I can't recover right. I start feeling like that overtrained feeling, under recovered feeling, whichever perspective or paradigm you like to look at that from. Um, I start to feel like kind of sluggish. I don't want to train. I'm just like, it's because your estrogen's probably high. So you need to keep that in check, right? And high estrogen can also like really increase the amount of acne, hormonal imbalance, or not imbalance, but what do I want to say? Um, I think that, and a lot of people have suggested this, that while testosterone does increase aggression, like actual roid rage, it's probably less testosterone and more estrogen. It's estroidal. I don't know if is that the right word. Estroidal rage, rather than testosterone roid rage. So it's important to keep that stuff into check. And I feel like I'm probably going to miss some things here. I don't want to go too long. Um, Ask questions. I'm always happy to answer, you know, questions and steer people in the right way, to the best of my ability. If you have questions, right, drop me a DM, ask in the comments when I post this video. Um, but like, I think it's important that the sport of strongman has more open conversations about this, because while I'm not into the political side of controlling what people do, I think everybody should have a choice. I kind of like that about strongman, that they never got involved in the political aspect of performance enhancing drug use. It is a little out of control. It's not a little, it's a lot out of control. And I mean, I've witnessed guys get picked up by an ambulance at competition because of the amount of shit that they were on. Their body started to shut down. It's not okay. It's ridiculous for a lot of people to be using, and to be using the amount they are for the reward that they get. Absolutely insane. I think it's important that we start having more of these conversations. But most importantly, if you can, and people are going to use, do it intelligently, do it right, and ask questions. Don't just trust the gym bros. Do your own research, um, but ask a lot of questions, man. And at the end of the day, it's got to be, it is your decision, no matter what. Even if you follow the random prescriptions of the gym bros, right? At the end of the day, it's your choice. You're the one putting it in your body, and you're responsible. But I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm gonna post this video up. Ask some questions. Let's talk more. I'm gonna get back into the stories here soon. I've got a lot going on, so I'm not getting this done as quickly as I wanted to. But I'm gonna get back in the stories and talk some more about what people want to hear. And I actually took some notes though too. So I'm going to touch on a couple other topics here. It may be a couple weeks before I get the next one out, but I'll see you guys in the socials.
We hope you enjoyed this episode, and don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and follow us on Instagram for updates. We'll catch you next time on World's Strongest Opinions.